I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. Tired of the madness, done with the sadness. Gonna break free and be unleashed.
Yay! Hello. Wow. Let me start again. Hey.
Hey.
Hey. Hello, disruptors. We are Unleashed AF, and we have some useful shit for you to do. We have some useful shit for you today. Wow. Sometimes you just
Some of it you can do.
Something. We're diving into true stories of activism, real women, real fights, real impact. We're going to bring you two powerful stories of resistance. Going to talk about women fighting Nazis.
From back in the day.
Back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Greta Thunberg taking on the system. And maybe a few modern disruptors. Stacey Abrams, Laverne Cox, RuPaul, and maybe some other people that you may or may not know. But that's okay. They're all being active. I'm Deidre Beecham, Visibility Catalyst and Nice Girl Dropout. I need to fix that. It needs to be reversed. I am Nice Girl Dropout and Visibility Catalyst. I left a religious cult, came out of the closet. Yay. Walked away from a soul-sucking 20-year marriage. And over 27 months, I rewired my brain because I was just full of anxiety and needed to get rid of that stuff. So I shattered my Nice Girl training, reclaimed my power voice. Now I help soulful women to do the same, faster, bolder, and on their terms. And nice. I do that with my co-host over here.
That's right. I am Jenny Badig, hypno coach and human factors engineer. I empower people to tap into their subconscious superpowers to be used for good, of course, and to achieve their full potential. And welcome, everyone, to Unleashed AF, the podcast where we help you own your greatness and unleash your authentic self. If you're enjoying our shows, be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, all those different social media verbs, and drop your thoughts, questions, or suggestions in the chat or comments so that we can see them and get back to you. Or you can go to our website, which is unleashedafpodcast.com, and go to the WWJDD page to leave us some feedback or ask us questions. That WWJDD stands for What Would Jenny and Deidre Do? Well, and that is quite a loaded question.
It's a loaded question. Absolutely is.
So we do this podcast for you guys every single week, and we look forward to hearing from you and interacting with you.
We do. And in our last episode, we talked about the spectrum of activism, and that was very interesting. We felt that we weren't quite done, though. So we have moved on to what we're talking about today. But first, if you'd like to watch last week's episode, it is on YouTube and on Facebook at Unleashed AF.
Yeah, and we also kind of as a result of that created a new page on our website too, right? That's public now.
Yeah.
There's a resources page on our Unleashed AF podcast website.
So if we have resources that we talk about during the episode, we try to get those over there.
Yeah, and that would include things like documentaries, books, people to follow, things like that, other resources, websites, organizations to be aware of.
And along that same vein, if you as a listener think of something or something comes across your radar and you're thinking, wow, this would be a great resource for people, let us know. We'll put it on our page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's talk about what has happened over this past week. It's a lot of crazy stuff. We only try to pick out a few things. And so we picked out some of what we thought were kind of biggies. And before we do that, I want to mention the economic blackout. We're going to mention it again before the end of the episode. But there is a 24-hour economic blackout on February 28th, 2025. The idea is for the oligarchy corporatocracy, to feel our impact, to understand where their money comes from. It comes from us. And to have a distinct difference added on to the so that they can see what kind of economic prowess we do have. And that is to stay away from all social media, everything that makes them money, to stay away from. Now, it doesn't mean that your local farmer you can't support. Please go support your local farmer. Please support your local your small local businesses, but stay away from anything, from buying anything or doing anything that helps to fund
the oligarchy machine.
Oh, I like that. The oligarchy machine. Let's talk about this machine. Let's talk about some of the things that kind of came up to the forefront, bubbled up to the top, as it were, for us.
It's definitely been more difficult in the last few weeks to come up with just a handful of things to talk about.
Yeah, because it is constant. And there's a video I'm going to share with you today that talks about that, because they want us running around with our heads chopped off, which is kind of how it feels sometimes if you try to keep up with this stuff. And so what we try to do is take the things that we saw or were important. Doesn't mean that they are, but they are for us, and try to share them with you so you don't have to go through all of the stuff. One of the things that happened was that Trump placed himself at the head of the Kennedy Center, which is interesting. And I'm not sure
exactly. As a result of that, there were several people who then resigned from their positions, either on the board or administratively, however they were supporting the Kennedy Center, because they didn't want to have anything to do with him. And then there were also artists that canceled their shows that were booked at the Kennedy Center. And
then we had the one artist, and I cannot remember who it was, but she stood up and on her shirt, it said, "Fuck Donald Trump."
Fuck Trump, I think. And it was like big middle finger or something like that.
Big middle finger. Yeah. So, and I know some people are like, well, why didn't the people stay and fight? Why didn't the people stay and fight? And I'm sorry, that is up to each individual.
Yeah.
Not everybody has the fortitude to stand and fight. Everybody has their own personal issues. There are some people that they can stand and fight. They have the wherewithal. They have the nervous system regulation. Not everybody can be there. And so,
there may be another area that they're wanting to spend more of their energy kind of fighting back.
Right. And just because they aren't there being active and displaying activism doesn't mean they aren't doing it in other parts of their life. So just be a little cautious about giving people too hard of a time for stepping down.
Yeah. And that was one of the things we talked about last week in terms of the spectrum of activism, is just remove yourself from either conversations or situations that you don't agree with.
Yeah. Some people
continue to support it. Don't be part of the machine, so to speak.
Yeah. And I don't have a picture of this. I forgot to grab a picture of this, but there was a 14 flag post. And Trump's announcement of his own dictatorship, where he said, "I long live the king." Awesome. For those of you,
this was the post, right? That's where he said, "He who does something to try to save his country does not do anything illegal," or something like that. Basically saying, as long as you say that what you're doing is
he who saves his country does not violate any law.
There you go. Yeah.
But in a different post, first of all, the 14 flag. So just in case you're looking at that going, well, what's the big deal about the 14 flags? And how does it relate to white supremacy? So it is, people who believe that is a reference to a 14-word white supremacist slogan, which is, "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children." That is the 14 flag. And then somebody said, well, hey, it's not the 14 flags if it doesn't start followed up by 88. And that is actually what happened. I can't find the post right now, but he said something like, "I wonder what it's going to be like 88 years from now." There's your 88. Because there's 88 letters in those 14 words. So that's fun. and there are all sorts of people. Here's another thing that I keep hearing is, well, it's no big deal. It doesn't change anything. It's not like he's saying to do things, except things like,
Hey TikTok, does this violate your community guidelines? Because when I reported it, it said it does not. So I'm asking.
that. And she went to TikTok and said, hey, this is hateful speech. And they're like, no. So it's being felt in a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one I was going to pull up, but I can't see it right now. But anyway. So there's more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It just, it doesn't, I'm still a little boggled by how people can't see just the return of history. I mean, I certainly wasn't aware of this 14, what 14 had to do with anything, because that's not my vibe. I don't run with that kind of crowd. So
nope.
I have no idea.
I had to look it up.
Yeah. And so it's not surprising to me that people don't necessarily recognize that immediately. But once it's pointed out to you from historical references, it's not just, oh, somebody's making this shit up to make them look bad. No, you can point to other examples in history where they've used this, or that was kind of their call sign, almost like the bat signal getting shot up into the sky. When you're having to use code and secrecy like that, chances are you're not on the side of the good guys.
Yeah, no kidding. And I just found the post where he called himself king. So this was on Twitter, and it's from the official White House account. This is on February 19th, 2025, so 2 days ago. And he wrote, congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king, President Donald J. Trump. So, yeah, he did call himself king.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We have two more things we wanted to share with you. Sam Nordquist. He's a 24-year-old transgender man from Minnesota, and he was tortured for weeks by 5 people. 2 men. And when I first heard this, and Jenny, you and I talked about this. When I first heard this, I just assumed it was all men. It was all men that had attacked this transgender man, Sam Nordquist. But no, 2 men and 3 women, ages 19 through 38, all from New York. And he was found in a field. It's just heinous what is happening. I just saw a picture this morning of a woman who stopped on the side of the road to help another woman who was struggling replacing her tire. And a man stopped. The one that stopped to help the woman happened to be gay, really short hair. He pulled over on the side of the road and said that she should not be helping her and beat her up because she wasn't participating in her role in society. Yeah, it's getting a little crazy out there. But let's listen to some interesting news from the week, because we just keep on going on. It's all ugly.
One thing that actually reminded me of that I forgot to pull for today as well was I saw a post that had a picture of, and I didn't get a chance to look into it either, so that's part of why I didn't pull it up, but it does seem relevant when you said she was pulled over trying to change a tire or something. I've seen that they may be using zip ties that have fentanyl on them to put on, like they'll zip tie the hubcap or whatever of a vehicle, and then kind of sit back and watch the person come out. And if they try to take it off the vehicle and then they start to kind of get woozy from the fentanyl or whatever, then they grab them and take them away. And I'm sure do this kind of thing to them. So don't worry so much about taking the zip ties off. If you see one on your tire, leave it alone.
Good to know. Little PSA.
Yep.
Talk to us about the game you watched last week, Canada versus USA hockey.
Yeah, so I've watched a lot of hockey over the course of my life. Not as much lately as I used to, but just happened to fall upon the fact that I guess there was like a week and a half break in the NHL season. Maybe they're doing this instead of the All-Star break. I'm not sure how that's working, but they were having a four nations face-off is what they called it, where it was the of the five top nations that populate the NHL, one of them being Russia. They weren't invited, but the other four were Canada, US, Sweden, and Finland. So they did pool play, like each of them played each other. And then last night was actually the championship game where the two teams that kind of had the highest point totals played against each other. So in the pool play round where the US played Canada, that game was in Montreal, obviously Canada. And I'd seen some clips before of NHL games when they were playing the US anthem, and the game was actually in Canada, that fans were booing the US anthem just since Trump has been elected, because that's not what they typically do. There's been Canadians that have helped sing the US national anthem if like the mic goes out for the person that's supposed to be doing it. Like a lot of people that follow hockey know both anthems because they play them both before just about every match or game. And so I'd seen kind of clips of that before, but I'd never actually seen it live. So I wasn't sure how significant or how relevant it was. But in that game, it was very, very clear that the Canadians were overwhelmingly and loudly booing during the U.S. national anthem, and were singing their own national anthem so loudly that the guy who was singing on the microphone just stopped for like a verse and a half and just let them take over, because it was just roaring the Canadian pride as they were singing their national anthem.
Wow.
So that was the first part of it. I don't know if that's what triggered this. I think it was in the works already before that happened, but they were anticipating it, because the announcer did actually say before that, please, we ask you to respect the national anthems of both countries. And that didn't quite happen. But as soon as they dropped the puck in the first period, I was confused because I'm like, what just happened? Like, what's going on? They all the players on the ice dropped their gloves, dropped their sticks, and the two guys in the middle that were doing the face-off just started wailing on each other. Now, hockey is kind of known for its fights, but I have never seen that happen, where they just, it was obviously pre-planned. There wasn't even enough time for somebody to call their mother ugly. Like it couldn't have been some kind of conflict that happened on the ice. This was pre-planned. So
then you said, so the next people, so what happens? They go into, I'm not a big hockey fan. So those people aren't allowed to play for X amount of time, right? They go into
I think it was probably a 5-minute major penalty.
Okay.
They go into the penalty
box. So now there's 4 people on the field and the next 2
on each team. Yep. So ready to drop the puck again. They drop it. Same thing happens. Everybody drops their sticks, their gloves, and the two guys in the middle go. And on the one hand, I'm like, well, this was kind of inefficient. If you knew you were going to fight, why didn't y'all just fight each other at the same time?
Yeah, because people can't see it.
But they were, I guess, making a statement in some way. Yeah. So now there's 2 people from both teams in the penalty boxes, which technically leaves them 3-on-3, but they didn't play that way. They had, 2 other players come out because it was even on both sides anyway. And then that was the only 9 seconds has gone off the clock at this point, because of course, once the refs have decided there's a fight going on, they stop the clock and they got to wait until they're on ice skates. That's very difficult to break up a fight like that. And without putting your life at risk as an official. So they usually wait till the guys fall down and then they jump on them and separate them that way. So it took way more than 9 seconds for it to happen, but only 9 seconds off the clock. They even asked the rules guy that they would throw to if there was some question about a call or something like that. They're like, oh, what's going to happen? Are they going to play 3-on-3 or how does it work? What if everybody one time after another, just the whole team ends up fighting each other? What do we do?
But it really highlights just how much tension is out there. I mean, here's one country on another country. Playing a sport.
Yeah. And a sport. And I mean, honestly, it's not the Olympics. There was no medals. I mean, this is something I think maybe they've done it once or twice before in history, but it wasn't the Pan Am Games. It wasn't even anything that was a huge. There were only 4 countries involved in this thing, and you could
Wow.
only play in it if you were an NHL player. So this is not anything other than just pride in country,
Wow.
for these athletes.
Mhm.
And that's how they decided to do it. Now, I will say last night was the championship game, which ended up having Canada and USA playing again. But that time it was in Boston, which meant then the Canadian national anthem got booed by the US fans.
Jeez.
And I can't really say that they were as loud in singing. I mean, you could tell they were singing it, but not quite as roaringly loud as the Canadians
As the
sang there.
Canadians. Yeah.
And there were no fights. They didn't do that whole nonsense thing again, but that was just kind of an indication. And there were several, I think there were a bunch of posts that went out, on social media about it. But I think everybody that knew anything about it or that saw it knew it wasn't, especially the booing of the national anthem. They weren't really booing the U.S. as a country so much. They're booing the, statements and
Current
moves
regime.
Yeah. Because there weren't like fights in the stands or anything like that, but just voicing their displeasure, which, that's one of the ways
There's a lot
to be
of
an
that right
activist.
now.
Yep.
Yeah, and so let's talk about some true stories of activism. We're going to go backwards a little bit because some of these things may or may not apply today, but it can just show the different levels of activism that are out there. And of course, we talked about that last week, but these are true stories of activism. And once we share these, we're going to share some clips of some modern activism that's happening right now. So the first one I want to share with you, I looked up one story and Jenny looked up another. The first is something that I heard rather recently, and this has to do with World War II during Nazi occupation. And there were 3 sisters, Dutch sisters, and they ranged in age from 13 to 19. Hanny was 18, and Truus 16, and Freddie, all women. And they were Dutch resistance fighters during World War II. So here's what they did. They gathered intelligence so they could share that with people who need it, who were going to do, some action. They sheltered Jewish children. So they hid people that otherwise would have been killed, the Holocaust. They stole identification papers. They sabotaged Nazi operations. And the most amazing thing that they did was they would lure Nazi officers, into the woods and kill them. And they didn't have a romantic look at this. It's not like when this person was interviewing the 3 sisters, or not all 3, because one of them was killed 3 weeks before the war ended. But when she was talking to the 2 sisters that were left, they said they had no romantic look at it. There wasn't like they look back and they're so happy they did these things, or how amazing they are, or that, wow, we're heroes. Instead, they said that in looking at the suffering, they were forced to watch people suffer. They were forced to watch innocent people being killed. And they just could not stand by anymore. They couldn't. They had to do something. They had to do something. And that's pretty much how they talk about it. One of Truus, for example, Truus killed an SS soldier after witnessing him murder a baby. And that's crazy, killing a baby. They did fight for acknowledgement of their contributions after the war. They didn't get any recognition until 2014. And the message that they want to leave with everybody is that to always remember, you must always remain human, even when doing the work of the resistance. So I think it's a really important thing to remember, because it's really easy to think, well, you're doing this, and so I'm going to do this. And it's just hate on hate. So we do need to remember to be human first, and to remember that even in the resistance, that we need to keep our own humanity. And so anyway, I thought that was a very fascinating. I thought it was a fascinating story, and for three sisters to come together and go, yeah, we're going to do something about this. We're going to pull together, and we're going to become our own little resistance and do our part. And I just thought it was just such a fascinating story, and deserved to be mentioned. Hopefully, we don't have to go to those extremes, but it is good to know that there are examples before us.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that we were talking about earlier before we came on live was that this is the kind of thing that it's somewhat surprising it hasn't made it into being a movie, because it's such an amazing story what they were able to do. They didn't have, huge backers in terms of people like giving them money to be able to support whatever they wanted to do the resistance. They didn't have some huge like government or like structure of organization and stuff like that. Just three sisters putting their foot down going, we're not going to put up with this. We're going to do something about it.
Yeah. And we talked about, well, why isn't it a movie? And what we came up with was, well, you're talking about three women killing white men.
Mm-hmm. Soldiers.
Doesn't matter that they were Nazis. They were white soldiers. And that's one of those things that this country does not like to bring up and talk about. Because you cannot show women killing white men. You can't do that. Not in this country. A little crazy. But so Jenny, who did you do some research on that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, as we were thinking about different people that have kind of been an example of activism in their own lives, the first person that came to my mind was Greta Thunberg. Because I remember, she was only like 11 years old when she was starting to really get known for the work she was doing with climate change activism. She first learned about climate change stuff like in school when she was 8 years old. And that was back in 2011. So, this hasn't been that long ago, but it's well over a decade now. And she actually, one thing that is interesting about her is that she has Asperger's, which is on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways I thought, man, kudos to her. There are plenty of people that go, oh, I don't know if I have the, confidence or the
who am I?
The voice,
who am I and who's going to listen to me? Yeah.
Right. And even in her case, having autism or being on the spectrum for sure, and Asperger's is definitely on the spectrum. She kind of had no fear really of speaking her mind. And even though she's been arrested several times, she's still active to this day. She's the main thing that she was known for, that she kind of got famous for, was doing a school strike. She started, and this was in 2018. So she was 15 actually when this happened. Wow. She decided she decided to go on a strike in terms of going to school until I think school started in August, and then they were going to have some kind of voting happen she's from Sweden. So there was some kind of voting that was happening mid-September, I believe. And so she was trying to make a point before that vote to try to get people to pay attention to what she was saying so that the vote would go in favor of things that were, obviously favorable to the climate. And her parents were not particularly happy about her missing school, but the nice thing was they understood and respected her desire to stand up for something that she was so passionate about. So from that perspective, they did support her. They allowed her to do this.
It's amazing to me at such a young age what a profound effect she had, not just where she was, but across the entire world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it was interesting because when she first wanted to do the strike, this was something I didn't necessarily know all these details until I started looking into it a little more. But she was trying to get other kids to like jump on board with her before she decided to do it. Like she knew when
Mhm.
school was going to start, and so she was talking to friends, and everybody was like, I can't do that. I'm like, no, I'd get in trouble if I do that. So she decided to just do it herself. I don't need other people to do it. I'll sit out here with my
Wow.
sign and do it myself. But once she did it herself, even though for some people they would probably go, oh, well, I tried and that just didn't work, so I'll just not do it. But she stuck to it. And then, of course, people took pictures of her and ended up getting on social media. Then, things went viral for this is what this girl is doing. She's trying to, get people's attention. She sure was getting people's attention. Um, and another thing that was interesting about what she decided to do in terms of making a big demonstration and being related to school, she
Mhm.
was inspired by the kids at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, that, did demonstrations and talks and stuff like that after the school shooting that was there.
Oh. Mhm.
That's how she got the idea of, hey, I can get people's attention through kind of making a fuss at my school. And so, it's just so interesting how things like that, the kids at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I'm sure had no idea that they would be influencing a little girl in Sweden that is passionate about climate change. So you never really know what effect your
Yeah.
actions may have. Now they took some big actions. It wasn't like they just sat back and only said a couple things and moved on thinking, oh, well, that maybe not do anything. They definitely wanted their actions to make a difference in their lives too, and in the lives of other high school students. But it had this whole other branch and ripple effect that influenced her and empowered her, I think, even to decide to do this, to go through with it. And it grew eventually to there were over 270 cities and 20,000 students eventually that
Wow.
participated in this strike. When she started it, from the time of school starting to when that election was, I think it was a little less than a month. It was no school at all. She was striking every day of school. Once
Wow.
after that election, it kind of transferred to, we're going to just take every Friday of every school week, and we're going to continue this protest. We're not going to go without school forever, but
Mhm.
we're going to decide we're not going to school on Fridays until something has changed about this climate situation. And that's the thing that really kind of caught on in terms of spreading around the world.
Yeah, and then when she was 16, can you imagine at the age I think if I did my calculations correctly, she was 16 when she was Time Magazine Person of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
16. What were you doing at 16, Jenny?
I was not anywhere close to Time Magazine Person of the Year. I was excited to be driving a car, to get my driver's license.
Right? It's just so
Mm-hmm.
amazing. We're so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. I mean, here's a 16-year-old who truly accomplished things that we don't even dream about, dare to dream about. And yet she did it and she's 16.
Mm-hmm.
We are all so much more powerful than we imagine. But we have to love ourselves, trust ourselves enough to have the boundaries in place so that we have the fortitude to stand up, not only for ourselves, but for other people.
Yep.
And that sounds like you were saying, her parents were big supporters of hers, which I'm sure helped tremendously.
Yeah. And I think from what I read, it sounded like it wasn't just that they kind of cheered her on through every step of it. They questioned, they were like, ooh, I'm not sure if this was the best way to do this. But because some of the other things that she did was, I think at some point she felt like, I can bring these things up to governments and make it, spread awareness of this information so that other governments are aware of it too. Other people can get involved in the movement. But I also need to look, within my own home, my own family. So she encouraged her family to reduce their carbon footprint. They all went vegan. They started to do more upcycling so that they weren't, just buying more stuff, but reusing stuff. Or buying things or finding things and just making them useful instead of just buying new stuff off the shelf. And then probably the most significant thing or most painful maybe for her parents was she convinced them that, flying in airplanes causes too much pollution and we need to not fly anywhere that we go. And her mom was actually an international opera singer at the time. And so it was a tough pill for her to swallow because that kind of affected her career. But she said, my daughter's happiness, I see how much this affects her and how important it is to her. And so for that reason, yeah, I'll go without flying in an airplane. And even when Greta came over to the US, she didn't fly in an airplane. She used a solar powered, racing boat to cross the Atlantic. It took 15 days for her to get from Europe to the US. She did some talks, at different places she's done so many public speaking engagements, which again, most of them she did as a teenager. So you think about all the people that, have that fear of public speaking. She didn't have that fear. In fact, in some ways, I think she looked at her Asperger's, like she wasn't ashamed of it at all. She felt like it was her superpower because it kind of stripped her of those concerns or worries about how other people thought of her. She's very just matter of fact. This is information. I'm giving you people this information. How can you not act on this information? Like that's what she was passionate about, just sharing the truth that she knew. So it really is, to me, very influential and impactful and inspiring in so many ways. And we, I think, can learn a lot from her. She was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize that same year that she got Time Magazine Person of the Year. So again, as a teenager, she's nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize just because she stood up and said her truth, shared the information with all these governments. And as I continue to read information about her, you can also tell that with all of her efforts, it certainly had a huge effect in raising awareness for people about climate change and global warming and things like that. I saw a graph somewhere about the number of times things like climate change, and there was another phrase that they were tracking, were searched on. And there was a big spike in 2019 when she was doing all her talks and school lockout stuff and things like that. But she's also, now that she's been doing it for a while, first of all, she's gotten pulled into other activist type of things. She's involved in, she's like pro-Palestinian demonstrations. She's, done demonstrations against the war in Ukraine. So it's not just about climate change that she's focusing all these activism efforts, but now that she's seen the influence that she has, she's seeing other areas where that can be, put to use as well. But she's also kind of acknowledged publicly even that as much as she's talked to some of these governments and they'll tell her what she wants to hear to her face, she's like, look at the number. You can look at the statistics. They're not doing anything meaningful. So she's aware of that too. It's not like she's just blowing smoke and trying to raise money or something like that. She's very aware of that. And the more people we have like her that can see through the bullshit and continue to beat the drum, it's got to take stuff like that, I think, to really make enough of a vibration that we can actually change things like that.
And I love what you said about that and what you said earlier about, the ripple effect. And I truly believe, just like you were saying, if there are enough people talking about the same thing, over time, things have to change. And so I want to share some examples. We've shared two very, very major examples of activism. And we have other people we can talk about that are more modern day. We have, Stacey Abrams, Laverne Cox, RuPaul. There's many people that are doing activism in their own way. Elizabeth Warren, what is her name? Cox. Escapes me.
Heather Cox Richardson?
No. She's Congress.
Jasmine Crockett?
Jasmine Crockett. It's not Cox at all. Jasmine Crockett.
That's some of the same letters.
Yeah, AOC. There are a lot of modern day examples that we can see, but I really wanted to unearth just regular everyday people and the activism that they're going into, especially right now with our current fascist regime, or trying to be fascist regime. And before we get into it, I think this is a very important message. Let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. This is from people that have been fighting fascism for years, and they just had a little bit of advice for you.
Hello,
We were just talking about you kids.
I'm Denise Heberly.
And I'm Bill Goodman.
Together, we've been fighting fascism for over 50 years.
And so much has changed over those 50 years, such as the ingredients to a successful firebomb.
And the glass that bank windows are made of.
But there's one thing that hasn't changed over 50 years, something that is so important to tell you kids who are new to this movement.
Shut the fuck up. You're sitting in the police transport van after a protest?
Shut the fuck up. In a holding cell with your comrades?
Shut the fuck up. Cop knocks on your door?
Shut the fuck up.
Texting on an unsecured device?
Shut the fuck up. Pulled over by the cops after a protest?
Shut the fuck up. Cop just asking about your day?
Shut the fuck up.
Okay, so that goes on for another 30 seconds. The message overwhelmingly is just, there you go. Shut the fuck up. So it's really important. They would go on to talk about how, they say they're going to help you, and everything that you say can be used against you. And that is the whole point of it. So they just said, just shut the fuck up. If you have to say anything, ask for your lawyer. And that's it. So I just thought that was kind of an important thing before we go into some of these other. I have some other ones we pulled up here. Let's see. How about, about standing up for, another just a.
For him and himself and everybody around, 'cause he ain't got nobody to listen. I'm blue, I've been beat, I've been died, I've been
Muted while that was playing, but it looked like you were talking.
Oh, sorry. That's right. I forget I'm muted when that thing's running. I could hear myself. All I was saying is that, sometimes I know I have gotten this way myself where I'm like, oh my gosh, but look at what's happening and look how many people think this. Okay. Just 23%. Yes, I know that's almost a quarter of the damn country. I get it. But it's not as big as it seems at the moment. Okay. And also remember that a lot of those people that did vote for him, that 23%, a lot of them are angry right now because he's doing things that they didn't expect them to do, even though we told them that's what he was going to do. So it is important to remember. And I just want to remind people before we talk about some of these activism things. We have one here. This is passive activism. Not everything has to be this super huge active thing to do activism. Love this. This is really short. This is about 27 seconds. And whoa, where'd it go? Oh, there we go. And I love that. Such a simple thing. And it has so much more meaning than somebody like me putting it out there. Here's a cis het man putting a flag out that supports people that are being harmed right now.
Yep.
And how hard is that? That's not a lot of work, and it's kind of like passive activism. I love this guy. This is, and I was very excited to see that there were guys doing this. That's why there's a couple of guys here at the beginning. I love this, what this guy had to say.
Left-leaning men who generally fit this kind of profile, we currently have a superpower. We have access to spaces that many other people in the left don't. We have an ability to speak to Trump voters in a way that not everyone else does. We have a place in the hierarchy that might let us get away with being a little fucking mean to them. Now is the time for us to slap people around just a little bit and then you hold their hands and you bring them back. But we have to do that work.
And I love that. And I know we don't have a lot of men that listen to our podcast, but you know men. And if there's a man in your life that could use that message, let them know that they're not alone. There are people out here that are doing the same work.
He's got a really good point too.
Doesn't he? It's fantastic, because I certainly don't have that privilege. You don't have that privilege, but he does.
Yep.
He does. And this is called this malicious compliance. This is a woman who went before a board. A school board? I'm not sure. Went before a board, and I just love what she did. Hold on. Malicious compliance.
Next up is Britt.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Chairman. As the Senate overwhelmingly voted yes.
You can call me Mr. Chairman if you want.
Well, I cannot be compelled to use your preferred pronouns as you have all voted.
Wait a minute. We're talking about preferred pronouns. A lot of people are. I prefer to be called Chairman French. That's my preferred pronoun.
I know, and you all voted that preferred pronouns cannot be compelled speech in SF 77. Anyway, my name is Britt Borrell, and I'm a constituent.
Nice.
Love that. Love
Yes.
that. And he comes back and says, this is my preferred pronoun. Not a pronoun, first of all. Not a pronoun. Chairman's not a pronoun. But was very offended when he was called the wrong pronoun. And so I love that. Malicious compliance. They voted that you could not force people to use the pronoun that you wanted. And so she didn't. Malicious compliance. It was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And she was firm in it too. Man, she was just like, she just kept going on. She didn't even make a point of it. You know, Madam so-and-so, da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I love that. Here's a good one. Here's some other things that you can do.
Their goal is to keep us shocked and overwhelmed so that we don't know what to do first, so we don't do anything at all. I found myself getting into that mind state, so I decided just to take action, even if it wasn't perfect, just to do some little thing to move forward. Here's what I did. Number one, I canceled Prime. I'd actually already done this a while back with all the Washington Post shit, but seeing that motherfucker up there on the dais, I was like, let's make sure all of my loose ends are tied up. So I canceled all of my subscribe and saves that I had going with Amazon, and I replaced them either by going directly to the company and ordering from them or getting them from Target. Between that and Costco, I pretty much could get everything. Number two, I set up a monthly donation to Planned Parenthood, just the organization I chose. I was also thinking about ACLU, Southern Poverty Law Center. There's tons of them. It's not even a lot of money, but it'll be coming every month and they're going to need it. Number three, I texted a friend and asked if she wanted to start a book club to start reading books about surviving authoritarianism and civil disobedience. And I asked her to text someone too. It's going to be small, local. I had people ask about joining it online, but I think it's really important to do this stuff in person, especially since all politics is local and the stuff that's going to affect our community is going to be different than what affects others. Yes, we're going to be starting with On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. Number four, and this was honestly probably the hardest, I stopped and enjoyed my time with my kids. It was a snow day on the day that I did all this, a rarity here in Texas, and my kids were lapping it up, having a great time.
The rest of the time, she just talks about making sure that you enjoy yourself. And that is so true.
Yeah.
Where was it? There's this one that talks about, I think it was this one. Talks about that same type of thing.
So there's a powerful quote from the peak of the AIDS crisis that said that they would bury their friends in the morning, protest in the afternoon, and dance at night. And it's the dancing that would keep them going. If the state of the world has you feeling completely drained and you're asking yourself, do I have permission to have fun, to experience joy? My answer is undoubtedly yes. And in fact, joy is a strategy to fight back. I just gave a TED Talk on the main stage all about this, and the main idea behind my talk is that we can take fighting for things seriously without taking ourselves too seriously. And in fact, what people in power want is for us to be depressed as fuck. Joy is rebellious. And again, back to the AIDS crisis, when millions of people were dying and no one, I mean no one, was joining our fight, drag queens and trans people turned pain into joy. And in doing so, welcomed millions more people to fight with us. So joy is strategic. Joy is an inside job. And joy welcomes more people to join a movement. Let's not forget that we have been here before, and what a shame it would be to our elders to give up now. Humanity is not dead.
Love that.
Nice.
Love
Can I just
that.
tell you, it took me like halfway
Please.
through that video to realize they had a mustache.
Good for you.
There was so much going on. I was just like, wow, look at her go. I was like, oh. I mean, obviously I knew it was drag queen, but I was like,
yeah, but
there it is, right on
and
the-
it's so true. I know that I myself got caught up, and I imagine you did too, Jenny. I know my wife got real caught up in just feeling depressed, angry, lost, frustrated, cynical. In some ways, I felt very destroyed and bewildered by our country. Absolutely bewildered by our country. But I love the focus on, look, we took care of things we had to. We buried our dead in the morning. In the afternoon, we did our activism, and at night we danced. And we need all of those. We need to take care of business. We also need to speak up and say things, which is why I talk incessantly about getting over your nice girl training, because until we get over our nice girl training, it's difficult to speak up for ourselves. And then in the end, to also have joy. Oh my gosh, to have joy, to enjoy ourselves. And you know that that's exactly the opposite of what they want to have happen. Joy pisses them off. And here's a really, oh my gosh, I actually have this. Hang on, this is a minute long. Check this out.
I just saw a creator say that the reason conservatives are so mad that liberals are kicking them out of their spaces is because now they have to be with other conservatives 24/7. And baby, good golly gee, that is the take. That is absolutely 100% correct. They don't want to be around each other all the time because it's miserable over there. The fun is over here. Do you know what's fun? Eras Tour. Do you know what's fun? Broadway, giggling, twerking, kikiing, making friendship bracelets with your besties. That's fun. But what do they have that's fun? It quite simply isn't fun to hate people all the time. To be clear, they want to hate. They do want to hate. They just don't want to hate 24/7. They want to take a break from hating sometimes to come over here and laugh and kiki and giggle it up and have a good time. But baby, you made your choice. Okay, so now you've just got to be filled with hate 24/7. And those are your full-time people. The racists, the bigots, those are your full-time folks. And you may hate it there, but I love that for you.
Yep. And I think that honestly, that makes sense for why so many of them are not necessarily closeted in terms of being like LGBT, but they do things that they in public will be against, but behind closed doors, they're doing that same shit.
They're doing all the same stuff.
Yep.
But there's so much shame in that culture. There's so much shame in that way of growing up. There's so much shame in that type of religion. And all of it has to do with control. All of it. And the last thing they want any of us to do is to be joyful, to continue living our lives, to continue doing all the things that make us happy and draw them to us. Because I truly believe, and I think you and I talked about this. I don't remember if we talked about it on the show last time or we talked about it after the show. I truly believe so much of this is a huge backlash to Black people having power, to women having more power, to the LGBT community having more rights, not more rights than anybody, but more rights than we had, just trying to get into equality. And so it's, they want us to be angry. They want us to be fighting. They truly expected that we would fight, that we would get out our guns and start fighting them. And they were ready. And it shocked them when we weren't. They don't understand us as much as we don't understand them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's even, I mean, that kind of helps explain why guns are so important to them, because that's sort of their go-to thing. That's what they think solves everything or protects you from everything. And it's just not the case. I mean, I've had discussions with people that I'm close to where they were like, you know, how can you be anti-gun? I'm like, well, I'm not necessarily anti-gun, but I don't think that, you know, where we are in terms of we're having school shootings way more often than we should. And we're not, the argument that so many of them have is like, oh, but what if we get it, like taken over by China or Russia? What are you going to do when you don't have a gun? I'm like, there is no way in hell they're coming in here with guns. They have so many other ways that are cleaner.
Yeah, no kidding.
To take us over. Like, come on, dude. And
Well,
so
not only that, I don't know if you saw, but Trump is looking into how do you get everybody's guns away from them, which cracks me up. Okay. And this, I think, is just a fabulous act of resistance. Now, in this particular case, it's a song that I'm going to share with you, and it's a community singing the song. And yes, that could be activism in itself. You going out and getting people together and singing a song, being joyful, building community. But I also love this message.
Take up space. Take up space.
Take up space. Take up space. Take up space. Take up space. Take up space. Take up space. I walk in. Take up space. Take up space. Take up space. Take up.
We'll put these up on either our website or on the Facebook page. That goes on for another minute. It's just really cool because they want us all hiding again. They want us all back in our closets. Those of us who are LGBT, they want all the women barefoot and in the kitchen with babies. And if you do all the things that aren't that, show up, be joyful, take up space, be out loud and proud. It makes it so much harder for them to actually implement the things they want to implement. If they can't come after all of us. We make it so much easier for hiding.
They also can't survive without all of us. Like we were saying earlier, in terms of the economic blackout, if they don't have people buying their stuff, the corporations and the oligarchs are not, they lose their power.
Exactly. Because they have to have the money to keep going. Yeah. So, we're getting pretty close to the hour mark. I have other videos that we could share with you, but let me go ahead and the ones that we didn't share, we can also put those up. We want to make sure that another reminder, which we said at the beginning of the show, which is the 24-hour economic blackout, which is what Jenny was just referring to. That's February 28th. Do we have a banner for that?
We do.
Oh, look at you. You are just on top of stuff. So that is where you can join the movement. This is where there's more information about it. And where is the other one? I want to give a couple of things up here. If you want to do calls and make calls into Congress, there's the website for that. And it's actually an app you can download and have right on your phone. And I thought we had... I don't see it. There's a website that you can join about, maybe it's this one. Is it this one? Is it Democracy 2025?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Check that one out too.
Sure.
Couldn't remember. I'll make sure we have it for next time, but there's a website that you can join to make sure that when we have enough people signed up for it, we're going to have a general strike. Actually, I think that is actually the website, General Strike. Yeah, it's generalstrikeus.com. Generalstrikeus.com. I guess we don't have one for that. But that is where you can go. You can sign up. We're looking for, I think it's 3%, if I'm saying that correctly. But we need a certain percentage of people to sign up for it to agree that they will go on strike. And when we do, then we go and do the strike. We want to make sure that it's effective. So please sign up for the strike. When is it going to happen? We don't know because we need enough people signing up for it to make a difference. So we have little mini strikes that are happening or mini kind of economic strikes where we're not involving ourselves in the economy. This is the really big one. There's also little ones where you're supposed to not work for a day. I don't have any of those up with me right now, but we have those.
Yeah, we can get more of those
happening as well. Where is do I have this up here? This, I forgot to give you this. This is actually a recommendation from the daughter of Martin Luther King. And these are things that she said are really, really important. So we'll put this up as well. And one last activism that I just thought was really fun. So there's a Greyhound bus that ICE was trying to get onto. Let me see, where's the AP one? Here's the AP one. Witnesses said a bus driver told an ICE agent to gargle his balls when the latter requested to enter the bus. So didn't let the ICE get on the bus, didn't let him take anybody away. And this guy was like, hey, that needs to be our first rally cry. Like history's don't tread on me. And I thought that was kind of funny. Somebody made a flag, right? Like the don't tread on me, right? I thought I had downloaded it, but I guess it didn't show up. It's a picture of this. It's the snake, but it says, gargle my balls. Don't tread on me. Oh, people crack me up. I love it. And I love when people are creative. And so keep being creative. Keep taking up space and do some things. They don't have to be huge activism things, but sign up for these sites. When things happen, go do them. If you have something small that you can do, that you can fit in, we have a whole bunch of ideas here today. Do something, because it's our livelihood.
Yeah.
Next week's episode, do you have anything else you wanted to add, Jenny, before we go?
I don't think so. I think that wraps it up pretty good.
Awesome. In next week's episode, we're going to talk about some of the sane voices in this whirlwind of a shiitake hurricane mess. So we're going to talk about people like Robert Reich, Heather Cox Richardson, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and many more, and about finding joy in the midst of chaos, how to be a community builder. We're going to talk about all of that next week. And if you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, follow, love us. Just love us. Share, get a topic. If you have a topic question or if you want to be a guest, please go to our website, UnleashedAFpodcast.com, and visit WWJDD. What would Jenny and Deidre do? We would love to hear from you. And anything else? We're good?
I don't think so. I'm excited to see if our outro thing works the way.
Yeah. So we're doing some new stuff today. We found out that the intro and outro that we use, there's actually a place for it. We've been doing it manually. So hopefully this works like magic, like it's supposed to. Take care. We'll see you next week. Maybe it will.
I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be